Foremost means more. More training, more information, more ways to grow your business. Find out what Foremost can mean for you at foremostagent.com. Click on Foremost Means More.
CNA Proclaim Vice President Todd Greeley recently sat down with Insurance Journal's Young Ha at a professional liability underwriting society conference in New York to tell us about the evolution of D&O products and the expansion of coverage.
We are seeing some new features added to the D&O product that's expanding coverage. It's some of these features haven't received a ton of traction out in the marketplace, but we are seeing them out there, and one example of that would be expanded coverage for investigations, and that is a situation that can lead to claim scenarios that we haven't had to deal with in the past, but it also can lead to scenarios where we are seeing, we can see some tremendous pressure on the program limits because these investigations can result in pretty tremendous legal fees. So that's been a feature in the D&O marketplace we're seeing more of. Other features we're seeing in terms of developments of the product, and was the subject of some of the discussion at the conference today is this feature where the exhaustion provisions in the D&O excess policies are being amended so that they don't require what we call strict exhaustion. So the underlying carrier doesn't pay its full limit. The insured fills the gap, so to speak. So if, let's say there's a $10 million limit, the underlying carrier pays $7 million, the insured pays $3 million, and that satisfies the exhaustion requirement. So as those features find their way into the policies, that creates a new dynamic from the claim side that can be interesting to navigate as you're dealing with those losses where someone below you hasn't fully exhausted. I mean, it's been a big topic in the D&O world for the last few years, and it's just the increase in breach of fiduciary duty suits. So these are suits brought by shareholders against the directors and officers alleging a breach of fiduciary duty. Really saw an increase in those types of lawsuits over the last couple of years. A lot of it driven by suits involving mergers. So these merger objection suits really took off, and part of it, well, not part of it, a big part of that was driven by the M&A market. So as the M&A market heated up, especially in the years leading up to the crisis, and then you saw a follow-on wave of litigation in connection with those mergers. So that has really increased. We're seeing other types of breach of fiduciary duty case as well. Again, these are shareholder lawsuits. So the volume of that litigation has really increased. The losses associated with it, generally speaking, has increased relative to what it was several years back when this was a very small part of the D&O marketplace, the claims landscape. But the loss driver in D&O still today is the loss driver it always has been, which is your 10b-5 litigation. But these new breach of fiduciary duty suits really putting more pressure on that primary and the low excess layers because the losses aren't the size that we see in the 10b-5 suits. A lot of the losses are going to be defense costs. The other thing we're seeing, where we can see, and it seems to be something that comes up more frequently these days, is one sort of species of these breach of fiduciary duty suits are derivative lawsuits. And those derivative lawsuits, depending on the jurisdiction you're in, can result in a non-indemnifiable loss. And when that happens, it can put pressure on the A-side product, which, again, depending on how the tower is constructed, you may have a traditional tower with an A-side limit on top. Well, those A-side limits can now be in jeopardy because of these derivative lawsuits. So, the traditional 10b-5 still the big loss driver in this space, but we are seeing a lot more activity with these different types of shareholder lawsuits. You're frequently dealing with claims where the potential loss will go up into the tower, and frequently it's a potential loss that would exceed the tower. And again, these are programs in the public company space where you're going to have 5, 10, even 15 markets involved. So the complexity these claims can present can be fairly high. Not only are you dealing with the underlying litigation, you're dealing with the customer, the defense counsel, plaintiff's counsel, but then you have 10, and again, like I said, sometimes it can be even more than 10 other insurance markets on the claim. So the big claims, which are the loss drivers in this book, that dynamic can be a real challenge to navigate. The one thing about D&O is that there's the one claim is always going to be different than the next claim. As an industry, we can shoot ourselves in the foot by how we behave on a big claim. One of the things that I know from the sort of customer broker side of the equation, if they see inconsistent positions being taken by the tower, there's a suspicion that the carrier who takes the more aggressive coverage position is only doing it because they don't want to pay a big claim, and they may be right. And as an industry, we have to be cognizant of that, and the obligation we have is to make sure that when we're talking to our customers, if we're taking a position that's different than another market is, to be able to explain in a very clear, cogent way what our position is, the basis for that position. And ideally, you want to be able to have that dialogue with the customer and with the broker about the issue. And if you can't do that, you're not doing your job. But these are complicated risks, these are complicated policies, and the claims that come in are frequently pretty complicated claims. So the fact that one carrier may view the coverage issues differently than another carrier isn't that surprising. Again, as an industry, we want to be able to have that consistency, but given the complexities of these risks, the chances of a differing view among the carriers is something that's always going to be there. So the key is, like I said, to be able to provide a principled basis for the position you're taking, and then you have to work through the disagreements.